Hey, welcome to Global Student Voices. You're joining us for part two of our conversation with consultant Josiah Marr. He's the founder of Marr Consulting and a member of the Global School Consulting Group. He has some fantastic insights from his research into school culture, and you're joining us for the second part. So if you missed part one, you got to go back and listen to it. But if you've been waiting all week, join us right in the middle of our conversation on Global Student Voices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a storyteller. I think in our preamble before the recording started here, folks that are listening in, Scott and I were talking about how we can spin a yarn and tell a story, and we don't want to make it too long for everyone at home. And then, of course, I'm explaining the reason why I'm going to make it long, and I'm making it longer. But here we are, guys. We're getting into it. Basically, my wife and I looked at each other. It's almost 3 years ago now, July 2023, and we said, "What if we went on a crazy trip? What if we, took the kids with us? What if we visited a bunch of countries, visited a bunch of friends, and what if we made it somehow connected to this thing that I'm so passionate about, which is international schools and their culture?" And so we took our young kids. We started in September 2025 here, so the beginning of the school year. We called it an adventure year because we were going to spend the better part of the school year traveling, visiting friends, visiting schools. And we had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at the time. And you ask, like, how people at home are like, "Are you crazy?" Yeah, we're a little crazy. Definitely a little crazy. And my wife, Tami, is a superhero, right? And so when you have a superhero, you got high capacity for we got to pack these 25 things that I've never heard of because the kids are going to need them. Or we got to plan this thing. And we forgot our transport from the airport to the hotel in Dubrovnik. I'll book that ahead of time, right? I didn't think of that, right? So my wife's a superhero, and in the meantime, I'm dreaming about schools. I'm doing research about every international school I can get my hands on. I'm going to all of the websites of all of the ACSI international schools. I'm ranking them myself. I'm going to blogs that are naming top international schools and awards winners and top IB score schools. I'm going into a full deep dive, including like Reddit, like the message board of the internet, and going, what do the international school teachers on here say are the best schools? And I'm using all of that information and I'm combining it with things like, well, I've experienced in Canadian and American curriculum. So, I want to further that experience. So I'll go to schools that are like that. But I don't know much about IB. So I'd like to learn more about IB. I should go to some top IB schools and Christian schools and non-Christian schools, right? I wanted to see what the most famous schools or the most prestigious or the award winners are doing as well. So all that to say, I made this big list of schools and I said, well, if I could visit the top 20, that would be amazing. And in the end, visited 30 of the top international schools. I visited a couple before this school year started as I was doing a previous job and traveling a bit, recruiting students. And that was wonderful, but the majority were during this year. We started in Europe in the fall. We visited 9 different countries, visited 10 schools, and then Asia in the winter, just after Christmas, and spent some wonderful time with friends, and then intermixed awesome school visits to schools all over the place and had a great time.
I'm always fascinated by the way international educators think and how much we have in common. When we returned to the US, my wife and I didn't take jobs right away, and we spent 6 months traveling around the US because we had a lot of friends and family that we'd missed them getting married, and now they had kids, and we had a lot of students that had come to the States to study, and that, you lose touch. And so this is a chance to reconnect. And we spent 6 months, visited 35 states in the US, a couple provinces in Canada, and visited dozens of students and former students and adult family members and adult students who'd now had kids. And I think we spent 2 nights in hotels. So we spent a lot of time in people's guest rooms and couches and all of that. I think there's something cathartic about the intentional connectedness. The other thing is I've also done some of that same research on international schools. When I took the job at Mountain View International School as principal, I thought I had grown up in an international school and I had worked with students from dozens and dozens of international schools. So I knew the product. So I knew which students were transitioning really well to university. So I had that as kind of an evaluation tool on schools. And then I did some of the similar deep dive as you did into trying to figure out, okay, what other schools like that? And, where are these superstar kids coming from?
Wow.
And what's making them superstars? So it was always about kind of for me, it was always the student focus first, the product first, and then what produces these products, and that's what we tried to create at Mountain View, was to take the kind of the best of all of those. As a good third culture kid myself, take the best cultural elements from all these places, and then we make it our own and our own authentic identity. So yeah, I get that.
Cool.
Were there, I, I assume, and without paying your full consulting fee, what are some of the big takeaways from those, or were there some commonalities? Were some things that most of those top schools had in common?
My next project here, that now that I finished the thesis, is I want to write a book. I want to write a book about this year. I want to get into all of the wonderful schools, the takeaways. I want to get into the things that make really bad schools, and I want to get into the things, even more importantly, that make wonderful schools. What is it that sets these schools apart was a question that I continually asked. And of course, I'm using that lens of school culture. I'm looking at things like how our students, staff, and community members interacting. What can I learn from the school from outside? And then what do I see while I'm inside it? But then asking these targeted questions. But some takeaways here for all of our friends listening in. First one is that leaders need to understand their culture. You need to continually understand your culture, even to clarify that sentence. Culture can change. Culture does change over time. And especially for new leaders, we can come in from X and Y school around the world with X and Y awards to our name. But if we don't know the place where we are now, we're going to miss out on serving it the best that we possibly can. From there, too, leaders that are there in long-standing places, they want to continually understand their culture through things like the International School Culture resource that I've developed, as well as targeted feedback, as well as getting out into the school and intermixing with everybody, just understanding things as best you can. From there, strategy, kind of strategy in everything, not in a overly business sense. I know there is a natural defense, a turtle-like reaction for some education people when they hear business terms being used in their schools. They're like, oh, no, he didn't. But here's what I'm saying, friends. Here's what I'm saying. It's that when we are strategic, we can do strategic with great love. We can do strategic with care, but strategic is organizing what you're doing and setting a course for the future with a purpose, right? That's strategic. So if I'm going to be strategic, I want to be strategic in my hiring. When I talk to the best schools, it's clear either they say it or I get there eventually, that they hire with purpose, that they hire based on certain criteria they're looking for. And when they hire, they clearly communicate who they are as a school and what they're expecting of the person coming in. So many things with that hiring stuff, but it's so essential. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir. I'm speaking to a bunch of international school leaders who are like, this guy gets it. And so I'm glad that you guys are understanding that with me. From there, it's the strategic element of alignment, strategic alignment in mission, vision, values, and initiatives. Don't just have a strategic plan and put it away until ACSI or WASC or MSA, whatever accrediting body you have, until they come back again. That's not the point, right? But make a strategic plan or something that resembles a strategic plan. And then how does it align with the values you're showing every day at the school and what you're doing throughout the year? I know the temptation. I get the temptation. I've seen it. I've worked at some of these best Christian international schools in the world. I've sent students to Cambridge, Oxford, Stanford, you name it. Sure. But the temptation is, well, we're going to do our Apple sale fundraiser again this fall because we do that every year. The temptation is, we're going to do this certain theme for our spring dance or our spring get together for the students because we do it that way every year. But why? Does it align with what you do, or is it being done because you've always done it and because the person who's always done it would be offended if you don't? Right? What's the reason that we're doing the things on the calendar? So be strategic and aligned in that. And the best schools, they are, of course, filled with fun, filled with wonderful events for students, filled with long-standing commitment from staff to run that thing. And those things are on purpose. Those things are purposefully designed in their calendar. And then another one for you would be collaboration, and collaboration in everything. Leaders are collaborative. Leadership teams are collaborative. Teachers are collaborative with each other. There is at least an attempted absence of ego, right? We all are sinful. We all have egos. We all have things. We think we're so great, and we think that person's just not because of whatever, right? And these things aren't always true. These narratives we tell ourselves, but they can clash and they can get in our way, or they always do. Egos get in the way of collaboration. So try your best as schools to allow collaboration, scaffold it, teachers collaborating with teachers. Well, give time for that. Give direction and guidance for that. Have leaders jump into those sessions and then jump into other groups next week when they're meeting, and so on and so forth, to help guide those processes. But there's a few for you that are some takeaways from these top schools.
Pardon the interruption. Thanks for listening to this episode of Global Student Voices. We're glad you're here. We try really hard to provide good content for international school leaders, parents, and students. But to know what you want to hear, we need to hear from you. So please reach out and let us know what you'd like to hear next. Now, back to the show. Wow, that's fantastic. That's a very value added. I appreciate it. First of all, let me give you the freedom to talk as much as you want, because I've already decided this is a 2-part series. We're just going to divide this in 2. And people will think, hey, they really nailed it. They did a 15-minute podcast.
Perfect.
We did 2 of them, which is great. As a gift, Josiah, give them one thing they can do on Monday that will be meaningful in shifting their culture toward that. I talk with students about becoming the person you want to be. So what's that one thing they could do that would take them toward that school they are meant to be?
I like that. I like the strengths-based mindset of that question, right? We're in process and we're learning. I like that. The number one thing that a school leader can do on Monday is reach out to Josiah Marr at Josiah Marr Consulting, josiahmarr.com. I'm totally joking with you, Scott. No, there's so many things that that leaders can do that I know it's intimidating. Friends that are listening, you're like, it's the end of the school year. Like, do I have time to even think about this? Like, let's skip to something else that's not asking me to do anything. What I'm encouraging everyone about today is that, yes, school culture is a process that can be improved. Okay, school culture can be improved. In order to do that, it doesn't always take a lot of money. It's often the interpersonal relationships. It's often how leaders carry themselves and model the way and start the change themselves. Now, by modeling the way, I mean, how can you build up some trust as the school year ends? How can you follow through on what you've said? How can you carry a little bit of the end of school year busyness or burden for your staff members? If you're a principal at a smaller school, here's a crazy idea for you. What if you emailed the staff, the teaching faculty specifically, and said, hey guys, here's my gaps in my schedule for the next 2 weeks as we're getting into a busy season. I would like each of you to sign up for at least one session where I can teach your class for you. I'm going to be the sub. You can use that time for whatever you'd like. You can go work out. You can go, some rest. You can read a book. You can do some grading. You can do some professional development. Whatever your school has done that year for that focus. But a little bit of servant-heartedness goes a long way. Another way and I'll give a second thing here because I'm passionate about this one, really passionate about mentorship and leadership development. And so another thing that leaders can do, it's the end of the school year, right? So we're getting towards, not the end yet, but getting towards the end for many schools around the world. So if it's not quite the time to start something new, how about you start making plans for and speaking to your leadership team about a leadership development program for next year. Think of 1, 2, 5 leaders in your school that are people that maybe don't have that leadership position, but are people that are showing willingness for leadership. And think, how can I develop them next year? Maybe it's just one-on-one. You're the principal of a smaller school. That one person, I'm gonna invest in them next year. I'm gonna pick a book and we're gonna read it maybe, or I'm going to set a meeting every 2 weeks with them and ask how I can add value to them and how they'd like to grow as a leader. We're going to set a goal at the beginning of the year. We're going to follow through. I'm going to give them a project to do, and it's going to give them some leadership experience, whatever that is. So here's just some practical things, friends. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but those things, both leaders modeling the way and mentorship, are 2 helpful ways that school leaders improve their culture. And you can do that starting on Monday.
Well, we'll leave you with that, folks. I think that's the big takeaway for today. I appreciate that for our school leaders. I do want to get to, if they want to reach out to you, there will be links wherever you're listening or seeing this. There'll be links in the description of how you can get a hold of Josiah Marr. I would really encourage everyone to do that. If nothing else happens this week, but Josiah's email blows up and he's overwhelmed by all of the school leaders, I will consider doing this podcast every week a huge success if that happens for you, Josiah. I think it's really huge for schools, and it's a very, like there's no loss here. Like if they end up not connecting with you and it doesn't end up working out for you guys to work together, they still get to take a moment to assess themselves. And I really think that the end of the school year is the perfect time to assess your school culture, because this is the moment where everything has broken down. Like everybody's exhausted, everybody's tired. If this is as
True.
miserable as you're going to get as a school, and this is a
Yeah.
great way to assess, like this, and this is when people, all of their inhibitions have broken down. So they'll be the most transparent they're ever going to be and be like, I can't do that because I'm exhausted and this is too much. This is when you'll get that.
You get the unvarnished opinion, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's also, and I'll give, I was not a great principal by any ways. I was a student-centered principal, which made me not a great teacher-centered principal. Thankfully, we had a good superintendent that was very staff-focused. But one of the things that I did well, and I'm very proud of, is I canceled a lot of meetings at this time of year and whatever I needed from teachers, I got it one-on-one. So things that I would have happened in a staff meeting, I would gather from folks that were making copies or sitting at lunch or some other time, and just give back those meeting times, because that's about the best gift a teacher, an administrator can give this time of year. So I'm sure there were,
Yeah, the gift of time. That's wonderful.
yeah, it's great. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Any last words for our listeners? Actually, I'm going to be really targeted. If a student happens to have listened all the way through this because they're just such a great person, anything for students, like just a word of encouragement or anything, just something for the student that's stuck this through.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, students, if you're listening to podcasts and you're growing in your understanding of education, whether you want to be a teacher or if you just have an appreciation for Scott and his work, because I think he's awesome, good for you, because a learner's mindset is what makes all the difference. In terms of the specifics of being an international student or a globally minded student, I think a big one is that you as an individual absolutely can make a difference. You can make a difference in terms of discipling other students. You can make a difference in terms of contributing as a young leader. The word that comes to mind is 1 Timothy 4:12, right? Don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for the believers in life, love, faith, speech, and purity, right? You as a young person, woo, you have incredible testimony and incredible energy to be able to give to a school or to an organization that's going to add value.
What a great word. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And folks, check him out. Well, again, we'll have all the links. His Instagram or his LinkedIn will be there in the description. Website's there. Check him out. Show him some love. Thank you again for being a part of this conversation. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Blessings, everybody.
I'm so grateful you stayed till the end. This was a great episode, and I hope it was really helpful to you. Again, we'd love to hear your feedback, but we also wanted to make you aware of some of the other ways that you can connect with Global Student Solutions. Global Student Voices is a service of Global Student Solutions. We also provide books and resources like you see behind me, as well as a variety of other services, educational content, and consulting. So we would love to connect with you. And at the very least, if you can follow us and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We also have a membership program coming up, and we'd like you to be the first member. So let us know, get your name on the list, and we'll make sure that you're the first to join the membership community. Thank you, and have a great day.